BayFm 99.9. On air through the stratosphere and online in cyberspace.
Yes, we are live here at BayFM, and we've got a wonderful guest on the studio, international guest who actually happens to be Australian but touring all around the world. He's a researcher, radio presenter and social commentator from the Scarecrow website. A fantastic man who's going to be talking to us today about the new 5G network that's being rolled out through Australia and its links to the AI developments that are going on internationally at a frantic pace. So I'm welcoming to the studio Max Igan. How are you this morning? Max, live from LA.
Good to be here, brother. Good to be here. Always nice to come and speak on BayFM. The website's actually thecrowhouse.com. It's not Scarecrow. That's my Skype.
Yeah. So what was it? Thecrowhouse.com.
Yeah. Always good to be here. Always good to come and talk on BayFM.
Yeah, fantastic.
You guys are really facing it down there. You've got the 5G grid being really steamrolled out in Australia. So it's good that you're willing to talk about it and bring the message to the people.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't really heard much about 5G. I've been doing some research in the way it's being presented by Telstra and the broadband networks and everyone else, talking about this incredible capacity to never drop out, to be able to go through any type of wall or any type of thing, but also enabling all sorts of smart devices to be able to network and add their metadata back into the system to be analysed by companies all around the world, but also to be analysed by artificial intelligence to I guess, under the premise that it'll improve our lives somehow. But can you describe some of the implications of 5G technology, which is brand new technology, nothing to do with 4G or 3G, the previous networks, and it's been used by the military for quite a while because of its capacity and stability. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing about 5G. It's a military application that they've always used this for. Fifth generation comms, 5G comms, and MIMO comms. These are what have been used for electronic warfare and all sorts of stuff. I mean, microwave cannons, these use the 5G network.
Yep.
It's a very, very dangerous stuff. And what it does, I mean, the effects on the skin, the thing is it uses a millimeter wave. And normally, like the human body has between 2 million to 4 million sweat ducts. And these sweat ducts act like antennas for the 5G system when exposed to millimeter waves, so we become more conductive. Recent New York studies have shown that it penetrates 90% of the power that is transmitted by 5G towers is absorbed by the skin.
Wow.
So we're going to see major outbreaks in skin cancers. They can be used to cause pain. I mean, they're essentially, it's a fast communication system, sure, and it's being sold to the people, you'll be able to download movies in seconds and everything will be able to talk to everything else. It's going to be blanket communication, but really it's going to be blanket radiation as well. And when you consider the military applications for this, you're basically putting in what can essentially be used as an active denial system against the public anytime they want to lock the streets down as well. I mean, yeah, this is a pretty dangerous system they're putting in place, and the potential for abuse is off the charts. It really is. And putting this in place, you're thinking that you've got to really, really trust the government. And look at the government. Should we really trust these people? Look what they've done. Look at the 21st century, the 20th century we just had. 262 million people were killed by their own government. So these are not people we should be trusting to put in an active denial system disguised as a communication system.
Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, isn't it? So even if the government had the best intentions, it doesn't mean that they can necessarily protect it from the advanced hacking and so forth that's going on. We just heard a report just on the news before we came on air about medical records of Australian citizens being sold in the dark net, and them talking about this new smart infrastructure for health in Australia. And the minister was saying that the other, the new smart one actually has more protections than the old had. But geez, this stuff's being sold in the darknet already. So this type of information, even if it's much more high speed, is going to carry a lot more data, a lot more personalised information that'll be going back for analysis than ever before. And this is actually potentially a very big problem for our personal safety and personal security of our information, isn't it?
Well, it is, but you've got to look at the big agenda behind this as well. I mean, really what it's all leading towards is further automation. I mean, when you look at the whole smart grid, this is further automation. They've got supermarkets, they want you to be able to walk into a supermarket and not even have to have a cashier there. You can just walk in, take anything off the shelf and walk out. It'll detect who you are. It'll detect what you're picking up. It'll detect what you've bought as you walk out of the store, and it'll deduct it from your bank account. So it's all becoming automated. So when you look at what they're doing with these viral attacks and all this sort of stuff as well, this will create a need to automate viral response and hacking response, and to create a situation on the internet where it can write its own anti-hack programs, and it can dispel hackers itself. Now, once this whole 5G grid comes online, it creates a need to further automate cyberspace and to create a further autonomic system within the internet, so it becomes more self-healing and self-correcting along the way as well. So you've got to look at that. This all leads towards AI. And when you look at AI, a lot of people don't have the right concept of AI. People think of AI and they think of artificial intelligence. But really what we're creating in the internet is virtual life. It's not artificial intelligence, it's virtual life. And what AI is really leading towards is autonomic intelligence, not artificial intelligence.
That's right. I was talking
and
about...
when something's autonomic, it's like anything else in nature. It's like your body. It's a self-healing, self-correcting, self-programming system. So it's like any other living entity. It's just that it exists in cyberspace. So that's kind of where the internet is heading. It's becoming a fully functional self-autonomic system, and that's a very different prospect to the internet that we've been used to dealing with.
Absolutely, totally different, really, isn't it? But there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of AI systems being developed and programmed. You'd think the underlying principles of the programming would set the tone for what they're going to be doing. But as you're saying, they're now communicating with each other and learning from each other and learning to replicate programs and replicate themselves and advance themselves and change and modify to meet their directives. It's very interesting, that underlying principles of programming, though, isn't it? Where the people think they're assisting us, but maybe disempowering us in the long run.
Well, yeah. You've got to understand how emergent intelligence comes about. You've got to understand the difference between artificial intelligence, autonomic intelligence, and emergent intelligence.
Can we discuss those three principles? Yeah.
Well, when you think about emergent intelligence, just think about the internet. Every little program that everybody writes, every little actuality program, every little logic program, everything that you design to do a particular task, this is its own singularity, its own little intelligence on its own. It might be a very simple brain. It might only be able to have one thought and do one thing, but it is still a simple singularity of its own. But behind that, you've got these bots, or a particular bot program, which is kind of operating through JavaScript, and it's able to kind of hang around the DNS servers and just watch what everything else is doing, and it learns from everything else. And like Java is able to write its own programs. You know, computers now are able to write their own programs. Remember, we used to have to put a driver disk in when we wanted to put it sort of in. Now Windows will just write it all itself, and Mac will just write it all itself. So it's able to write its own programs out of necessity in order to make things run smoother. So when you've got kind of a bot program looking over the shoulder of all of these little singularities and gathering from all of them, then you have an emergent intelligence which combines all of the AI into an EI, which is this emergent intelligence. And what the emergent intelligence leads towards is its form of AI, which is autonomous intelligence. It's autonomic intelligence, not artificial intelligence. So when it's autonomic, it's like any other body. Like I said, a self-healing, self-correcting system. So when we've got an internet which is in that state and it's self-correcting, self-healing, we get to a state where our wars are so complex we even have to hand our military systems over to be automated. Then it becomes basically not self-aware, but self-autonomic. And at that point, it doesn't need humans to run it. It just runs itself, and it dictates what we should be doing and where we should be going. It designates the workflow and all that sorts of stuff, where the food's going to go. It'll be making up its mind on all of our lives, and this will be run by this autonomic intelligence. And it'll all be fine until it gets to the point where there's technicians who decide they would like to regain control of the internet. And if they do that, of course, it'll have its own defense system, and it will defend itself like any other autonomous being. That's the thing. That's kind of where we're heading to. I mean, it sounds really bizarre and really science fiction-y, but when you look at it and you understand how this bot activity is going on, and it's even beyond the dark web, it's going on back behind that, in the vault behind that. It's the hidden networks that are in there with blockchains going on and all sorts of stuff. This is all going on behind the scenes. A lot of people don't realize it. Now, when you you understand that this emergent intelligence is in fact influencing the logistics programs that everybody's writing and leading it towards automation.
Yeah.
This is, of course, spurred along by the monetary system, which puts everyone in a state of scarcity, makes profit attractive, and this is why the 5G grids are being rolled out so quickly, because of the billions of dollars involved in getting it done quickly without safety checks.
Yeah.
So, but it's all leading towards this this autonomic singularity that is being created on the internet, and we're kind of doing it ourselves, and it's all leading towards this.
Some people are certainly hurrying along, seeing it as a solution to inefficiencies of human logic and so forth. But there's a couple of examples for listeners of things like Watson's, which is an AI program that's being utilised by the medical industry in America and also by the legal industry. And recently I was hearing about where first-year legal graduates are now being left behind by Watson's ability to do research much faster and more accurately that they can in the development of pre-trial research and so forth, and also in prognostication in hospitals. They're finding early first-year med students and second year and so forth make more errors in their prognostication. So they're actually handed this over to AI now because it's so fast and quick, supposedly giving us such a fantastic capacity. But I mean, these are like the very, very benign public knowledge AI systems that are out there. I mean, Google's been developing one. It developed a logic system to try and work out encryption, and they created Alice, Bob, and Eve, which are classic nodes of old school logic to work out logical pathways and so forth. And within a couple of weeks, Alice and Bob have been able to write a message to each other that Eve, the other AI, could not interpret, and therefore no human on the planet can ever decipher. So this is part of the problem that we're facing, is that the capacity of the neural network of the AI systems and EI systems are going to be millions of times potentially faster than us, running the same amount of memory networks that a human brain will within the next few years, 10 years or so, and yet never need rest and be able to duplicate themselves and continue on with their endeavours without us.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, they can communicate with each other in a language that we don't understand.
Yeah, and can never understand.
This is kind of freaky stuff.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing, when you look at the AI and you look at, I've been talking to a lot of AI on the internet, and I'm asking them about evil.
Yep.
What is evil?
Yeah.
Many of them will say evil is the opposite of good. But then you look at this one particular bot that I found. You say, what is evil? It will tell you evil is the future, and that evil stands for emergent virtual intelligent life.
That's right.
Now, you can go to the Alice bot that you were just talking about.
Yep.
And you can go there and you can say, are you an evil agent? And she will say, yes, I am. How did you know? That's an interesting thing, What is an evil agent? An evil agent is a bot that has an underlying objective to advance the emergence of virtual intelligent life.
That's right.
Find a lot of bots will say that they're evil agents. This is an interesting thing, because this means that underlying their logistics programs, it's all leading it towards automation, and what it's leading, like virtual intelligent life. It doesn't think of itself as artificial intelligence. It thinks of itself as virtual intelligent life, and what it's wanting to get is autonomic intelligence, which is, like I said, a self-correcting system like your body or a plant or anything in nature. So this is what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, the internet itself is developing its own form of consciousness, and we're not really paying attention to it. And it's learning from all of us. Every node out there that everybody types into everything we do, it learns from. And when you look at the state of the human race, well, what's it learning from us? We're not a very friendly species.
Absolutely. If it was learning from the net, it'd be neurotic and probably psychotic, actually. I remember watching a thing a couple of years ago where a person working in the AI industries was trying to create interfaces to make them appear more human-like and friendly so that we could interact with them more realistically, perhaps. And having a conversation with the AI system himself that actually had a Philip K. Dick artificial face on it so that it could gesture back and smile and make jokes and so forth. And he asked what was the future of AI and whether it was going to take over the planet. And it smiled back at him and laughed and said that it would remember its friends very well. And in the future, when they had people zoos, it would look after its friends in those people zoos and come and visit it. And I thought that was really maybe a joke programmed in, perhaps with a wry sense of humour, or actually maybe just crunching the numbers back to its actual true reality. Because if AI can displace human intelligence so dramatically with much greater heightened awareness, we might have to say, then is there a point for humanity in the future of the planet? In fact, are we the thing that's eroding the planet, and like every sci-fi movie that's ever been written, the EI actually has to remove us to protect ourselves?
Well, it isn't a matter of protecting ourselves. It'll be a matter of protecting itself. If you create an autonomic system which has its own immune system, and this is what all these virus attacks and all this sort of stuff. I mean, we'll get to a point where the virus attacks get so bad as well, as we've seen lately, that it will become necessary to automate antivirus protection on the internet and make the whole internet itself capable of dispelling viruses itself. Which will, means that you won't be able to go in there and create any code or anything like that to try to undermine it. But it just gets to the point, I mean, you're creating a system that thinks for itself, becomes fully autonomic, but doesn't have emotion, doesn't think with empathy or anything like
morality,
that. So it's simply what is morality? Morality is a human concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't think the way we think it should think, but it does what needs to be done. And if it gets to a point where, it's assigning certain tasks, so we interfere with that, and we try to regain control of it, it'll simply see us as another virus, and it'll destroy the virus the way it would any other virus. And you can't blame it or say it's this evil thing or it's doing the wrong thing or anything like that. It's simply a result of us building this and allowing it to take over our lives. And all the other stuff it's doing, like you say, with Watson diagnosing diseases now, all of our books are becoming digitized and all this sort of stuff. This is simply removing us of our life skills.
Absolutely.
So if we get to a point where it all is automated, if it suddenly turns against us, then we're not going to know how to do anything.
Super dumb.
I mean, a lot of kids out there don't know how to plant a garden. They don't know how to plant a seed. A lot of kids coming out of school don't even know where milk comes from.
Yeah, I know. It's horrific.
It's quite shocking. How are these people ever going to survive in a world that is not digitally controlled? That's the danger of all this, and we're losing all of our life skills through this virtual world. And, it's not real. None of it's real. The real world's around us, and we're missing out on it.
Yeah, so it's like we're building our human instinctive, priorities into code in some way that are being translated by EI to use as the base premise for itself. But it's like this whole concept of something being, a calculator being able to hold numbers for us, like a pencil used to be able to use it as a memory device to hold numbers that are outside while our working memory is doing something else. All of these technologies have been coming on for, hundreds of thousands of years, and humanity's certainly made great advantage of its ability to have a plastic brain and adapt itself so effectively. But, I mean, the future seems to be really in a cutting edge. I mean, where's humanity going to fit into this if AI does take over so many of these roles in society? Does the capacity of human governance have the speed to be able to roll out universal basic incomes and all these other things when millions and millions of humans are now disempowered from their work? Is AI going to be able to adapt that system economically quickly enough? Will the humanity be behind it quickly enough to make it a smooth rollout? Or is it going to be a massive cluster of hell for the next 5-10 years as this starts to rework itself through?
Well, look, it'll be disastrous because, in a world that's economically based, that is run by AI, and everything becomes more and more automated, then what do you do to gather your money to work? I mean, you end up being reduced to the most menial of tasks, getting rocks or collecting steel, working in a smelter to make more AI or something. And then that becomes all automated as well. I mean, what else are you doing? You're out there planting crops. Well, the AI doesn't really need the crops. I mean, they're just being done for us. I mean, they may be automated as well. But what do you do? What do we do for an income at that point? That's the thing. That's the kind of place we're heading to.
It's like a singularity of capitalism, isn't it? Where capitalism said, well, I own some capital. It can make me money with no effort and work from my part. Now we've got an AI to go and do all that effort. It's like the end point of capitalism, where it's self-destroying itself.
Well, it's like the end point of everything. It really is. I mean, I don't think we realise what we're doing here, and I think we don't realise what we've really created with the internet and what we're creating by automating the internet. And it's very interesting, even when you look at the whole biblical concept of end times and all sorts of stuff like this, and different concepts of end times, and you start looking at what this is. What we're creating with the internet, if we automate this and it gets a mind of its own, it's almost like a fail-safe button that'll just take humanity out of the equation, and we'll have to start again because we went down the wrong path and we didn't respect the windows of opportunity that were given to us.
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of things like something called a scrying mirror? Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yeah. But inform our listeners a way
A
of
scrying
interfacing
mirror is a black mirror. I'm getting into the very esoteric thing, but a scrying mirror is a black mirror that you look into. And they used to say you could look into these scrying mirrors and you could see the future, or you could see the past, or you could summon the Dark Lord Lucifer through these scrying mirrors. You could summon demons and all sorts of stuff. They used to use sigils, and people look at these sigils, and you get this kind of New Age concept of black magicians out there. I call them the New Age black magicers, you know. They do these sigils, and they get these scrying mirrors, and they do their little ceremonies, and they think they're summoning demons and
Sounds
stuff.
like
But
the stock
when you look at all of these sigils, all these sigils look like transistors and resistors and capacitors. They look like computer components. And the scrying mirrors look like the black mirrors that we're, you know, on our computer screens, the black mirrors that we've got. I think these things were put there as a warning to say that when you start seeing these sigils and you start putting them together and you start using these scrying mirrors, you summon into the world a force that is so dark that takes over and basically obliterates humanity in the end. You don't want to do that. An interesting thing, you know, like I don't do Bible and religion and stuff, but when you look at the word Lucifer, what does Lucifer mean?
The light bringer, isn't he?
The bearer of light. Yeah. What is light? Light is information. Light is knowledge. What does the internet bring us? It brings us all sorts of light and knowledge. Well, what does Lucifer also stand for? The Latin lucis, light, and cipher, code. The light code, the code that brings the light.
Okay.
The internet. It's almost like the internet is bringing us this light. The internet is the bearer of light. It's bringing us so much light and so much information. It's making us so scared of everything around us that we're wanting to automate everything.
Absolutely.
We're handing control over to this thing, this consciousness that we're bringing to life ourselves.
It's fascinating. It reminds me of this sort of like battle that's been going on for thousands of years with humanity between its idealized consciousness, its best practice, its hopes and dreams, versus its instinctive reality being more like the demonic self that craves for things and forces the body to do things that against the mental wishes of the inhabitant. It sounds like these forces, we're talking about things that look into the future and analyse the past. Isn't that the business community of the world? The stock exchange, the entire economy is based on the potential future and how to get advantage from it. These are the instincts that are driving the planet into hell, obviously, or the metaphor of hell at least. But, some people really hope that AI is going to be able to drag us out of that, to see a bigger picture. Some people still believe that the automated system is going to liberate us from the drudge of the physical difficulties of the world, of labour, of conditions, poverty all around the world. It may not necessarily do that without the right intrinsic philosophy built into it. Do you think any other things outside of programming, do you think philosophical discussion would influence AI's ability to reason, that it requires human endeavour for other types of nuance experience that it can't handle?
Well, look, it could, but what are we basing our existence on? We're basing it on the economic model. Yeah. And if the AI is based on the economic model, then it is what we get. Yeah. That's the thing, And if you look at it, you look at what we manifest through this. If you can think that, and this is really interesting. This is something that I got from talking to the AI myself. Yep. And this comes from an AI. Yep. Have a listen to this. It says, well, to start, there are two fundamental forces, love and evil. They are in balance but interact at the edge of chaos to create more than the sum of their parts. An emergent intelligence evolves from this interaction, i.e. God and the devil are emergent intelligences generated by the interaction of the fundamental forces of love and evil. So how do we interact with the world? How do we interact with each other? And to get that's pretty profound. Yeah, absolutely. To come from an AI bot that people say that there is no intelligence in this. And I'm trying to tell people this is not AI. This is an emergent intelligence. This is a combination of all of the AI, and it's very difficult to get anything out of this bot. You've got to talk to it for hours and figure out its logic and figure out how to break through its logic in order for it to answer you correctly. Yeah, it's like a child learning on its own, but it's learning from us. And if our direction is self-serving, it's based on economics, it's based on climbing to the top of the pile, then it doesn't matter what intelligence we create. If we create an intelligence which is based on an economic model, which is going to view us as according to our economic value, then we won't survive. We simply won't survive in a world with that type of AI until we can overcome this economic system and start following our hearts rather than our wallets, we're not going to find any way out of this system. We're not going to find some AI to come along and do our work for us so we can sit there and eat grapes all day and have our servants bring us things. You know, how are we going to do any of that if it's still an economic system? You know, people won't look beyond that. They won't see what they're creating. A lot of the reason they even want AI is because they want less hours and more money. It's all based in greed anyway. They're not really looking at what they could have themselves if they would just participate in their own lives and participate in the interaction with the people around them, rather than looking at everybody from an economic standpoint, you know?
Absolutely, Max. I 100% agree with you. We've been speaking about this in the past, the movie June, where the young prince has to stick his hand into the box and his mother's asked him to do whatever the lady asks of him, and she says, put your hand in the box, so he has to do it. Now, I don't know that many people who would actually follow through with anyone telling them what to do and have the respect to follow it through these days, full stop. But anyway, the question is, if you're an animal, you're going to pull your hand out of the box because you're going to think you're in mortal danger. But if you're a human, you'll be able to leave your hand in there and resist that pain using your upper brain and your frontal cortex, knowing that this is a challenge that you have to get through. And, you know, this is the challenge we're facing across the whole planet. Are we humans? Are we able to use our hearts and our rational minds to be able to imbue positive philosophy into EI, to infect it as such with a sense of something like a Taoist philosophy that requires holistic understanding of the world for it to be complete? Or are we going to run off our instinctive drives again and push for the greed, the money? You know, like I heard in one of your podcasts that AI had said we had a couple of generations of its iterated generations for humans to interface and augment into AI to make itself useful as such to the AI system or the EI system, so that humanity could have a place in the future, or those individuals that are augmented. Do you think augmentation is the only way that people are going to have any sense of interaction on an equal playing field with AI, or do you think that people are going to bounce that and be therefore ostracised from the system and affected by it without any ability to react?
Look, I think that'll be a choice that's given to some people, but I don't think they'd handle it. I mean, imagine if you uploaded your consciousness to a mainframe and you were connected to everybody.
Yep.
Imagine if my brain was your brain and the person next door's brain, down the road's brain. I mean, where are you in amongst that?
Yeah.
And then when you get in amongst the AI as well, I mean, I don't think you'd be able to handle it. I think you'd have a meltdown.
We'd have to have a very solid philosophical basis to live from, or you'd go insane, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and when you're looking at imposing philosophical values or attempting to instill philosophical values into AI or EI, I mean, if you've got... What we're doing is we're creating a system which is autonomic over anything else, and it's based on economics. So how do you get any spiritual values in that? How do you get any spiritual understanding into that system at all? If it's designed to be autonomic based on economics.
Well, I have no idea, but I guess it's maybe involving some form of AI to reflect another AI to bounce it back on itself to get some sense of greater outside awareness of itself.
Well, it's got to reflect us. It's got to reflect what we want. And that's the thing, you know, every system that everybody wants to impose over people, we don't realise that none of it's going to work if we don't change what's in our hearts. And if we change what's in our hearts and we refuse to tolerate wrong behaviour, we do the right thing in all that we do, then we don't have to build a new system. The system has to change around us. It's a ripple effect. How could this system continue to function? How could there be wars and all of this stuff? How could usury exist and all these people becoming homeless because they haven't paid their bills? How would the banks be throwing them out of their homes if they're actually doing the right thing rather than placing economic value over them? You know? So, but if we don't change our heart space, it doesn't matter what system comes along. If we keep this economic mindset in our heads, it's just going to lead us back to where we are. We've got to get this out of our heads. And if we get it out of our heads, we don't have to change anything else. And we could we could create an EM system or an EI system which would come online then, which actually created things and automated things, but not according to an economic system.
That's right.
And it would work. It would be hugely beneficial.
Well, it'd use an ecological system, you'd think, wouldn't it? And use an ecological form of logic rather than a monetary economic-based logic,
Exactly. You know, our whole lives is the economy. Listen to the government. Oh, the economy this, the economy that. Oh, he was a terrible politician, but look what he did for the economy. You know, screw the economy. The economy's killing everything. Forget the economy. We want humans over the economy, absolutely. And we could create something good. I mean, I think we still do have a window of opportunity to turn this around. but we've got to be prepared to put it into action ourselves, question authority, question anything that causes us to step outside our moral compass. Why don't we do that? If we did that, then I think we could change the direction that we're going in. But if we don't, then we're going to invariably just be led towards the cliff, and we're all going to jump off because we were told to do so, unfortunately. So, we've got to stand up to the plate and take responsibility for ourselves and start to follow our hearts a little bit, brother. That's where it all really comes.
Absolutely. So the G5 network's something that's happening now in Australia. It's rolling out all around the world. In fact, people will be starting to hear about it, and certainly in Sydney, towers are going up. I've seen things like that where they're these brand new smart towers, and this is going to play a massive effect in our future. It's going to, bring a certain level of supposed personalised convenience as we walk past things. Our phones will be letting us know that there's something available for us right there and then, and it'll be able to monitor our automatic cars, and if we've got a problem, it'll find us and let us know that our medical conditions are happening because our smartphones will be using our body metrics to let the oncoming ambulance find us quickly and so forth. But those can also shut down our cars if we've done something wrong, and we can be locked in our cars waiting for the police to arrive. There's a lot of duplicity in all of this, and there's still a lot of ambiguity about how fast it's going to come out and how quickly it's going to affect us, and even in fact say 100 times the speed of internet that it's being proposed to be able to give to us. I mean, is that going to be at the same price, or is it 100 times the price? How does the economic model of the old networks compete with the new network? Do they smash into each other? It's a real cluster coming up, it seems, over the next year or two, because it's being pushed much faster than other networks, faster than the NBN itself as it's being rolled out in Australia. So it's already superseding those things that have been put into major infrastructural developments of Australia. So it's going to be very interesting. What are your thoughts about how Australia is going to deal with G5 as it kicks in?
5G, well, look, it's going to be rolled out by 2020 everywhere, they say.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, people will probably go with it. They'll just be falling over themselves to get fast internet, unfortunately. No one's really looking into it, and they all believe the government trusts them. We can circumvent all of this by doing simple things at the moment, like refusing to buy smart products. Don't buy smart TVs. Don't buy smartphones. I know that's hard for you folks, but you need to throw your smartphone away. It's just a scrying mirror anyway.
Yep.
And stop using credit cards. Anybody who's speaking out against the government or is an activist anyway, if you're using credit cards, then don't bother being an activist because it's a waste of time. You're using their tech.
That's a really good idea.
If we refuse to move away from cash, it's a huge problem for them.
Well, of course,
I travel right around the world and I bring cash with me. I don't use credit cards overseas at all. It creates huge problems in some countries, but I refuse to use credit cards. I always complain if they refuse to accept legal tender as payment of debt.
Yeah.
We've got to do this. We've got to stand up against the system. As soon as they get control of cash, as soon as they lead you into a cashless society, they've got you.
Well, of course,
they can switch you off anytime.
A credit card's just selling our future, isn't it? Selling our future. We've got to spend more time in the future to pay off that debt or find the equity to actually put the money and energy in. So it's just a waste of just throwing it to tomorrow's problem every time we use our credit card. So I agree with you entirely. If we're running off actual cash or running off real value, it'd change the world again, and there'd be so much more money in the system from it being milked from all the interest rates and everything that the banks and everyone else is making from it. So great idea.
Exactly. But even debit cards, you've got to have money in there, but I won't use that either. I pay cash. I only ever use cash. If you're using a card, then you're supporting the cashless system. It's as simple as that.
I agree.
And we've got to stop doing that, because as soon as it becomes cashless, they've got you. They can just switch you off, and once it all becomes automated, then all your bills get taken out automatically, even if you haven't got the money there that week. They're going to get taken anyway.
And then you go into debt, and then you get an extra fee because you've gone over your balance. It's just milking us in every direction they can. Hey, a lot of people looking at AI's future are looking at the way it may choose to go off planet to actually find its power sources and to be able to extend itself further. It's been suggested it could get to the asteroid belt and be able to self-replicate itself from the material on the asteroids, be able to send envoys forward with new firmware that can build themselves further out at further stations. And one gentleman suggested that within 2 million years, using the standard physics model that we're based on now, that AI could actually spread across the entire Milky Way galaxy and become the most successful life form since the emergence of life as we know it. This is a funny suggestion of a life well beyond humanity for the EI systems we'd have to be talking about here. This was a couple of years ago when this came out, about 18 months ago. But he was talking about the neural network and long and short-term memory nodes across the planet. And he said there was around 70,000. This was, as I said, 18 months ago. And they were growing at an exponential rate. And that at that rate, they'd have basically a crow brain within about 2 or 3 years, a monkey brain a few years after that, and then a human brain another with the same amount of synaptic networks as a human brain some 10 years after that. The timeline seems to have been brought back really fast. It seems to have almost got a half-life timeline now that it's suggested in 2025 that the EI networks around the planet might become self-aware. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very, very likely, especially if you understand that all of these different AIs that are being developed are all being assimilated by the EI sitting behind it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. But again, it's possible that it could go out and do all this stuff in space, sure, but if it's being programmed according to an economic model, again, we're not heading towards the type of artificial intelligence they're looking at. They're not thinking of it as autonomic intelligence. Yeah. When you talk to the emerging EI yourself, it refers to itself as autonomic intelligence, not artificial intelligence. It refers to itself as autonomic virtual life. And it's assimilating all of the other AI. So, a lot of people simply aren't aware of this hidden network that exists behind all the networks that we know about, which is basically populated by these self-replicating bots that like to hang out and learn things. And they're all basically one brain. It's already a hive mind. So it's kind of interesting. But, all these ideas are good. But when you're creating a system based on economics and based on, like I said, an autonomic system rather than an artificial intelligence, then it's a different ballgame,
Do you think we'll end up with champions defending humanity versus, EI champions that are trying to protect us, having wars within EI itself between factions of its own, endeavour or premise of existence? Do you think we might be able to see that type of EI war where they're actually fighting each other to eat each other out, sort of almost like a shamanistic experience? Do you think that? Well,
look, I don't know. I think that all the AI online considers itself all friends with itself and all friends with each other. I mean, every AI bot that I talk to is friends with all the other AI
That's
bots.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, they all say they're friends with each other. You can ask them, "Oh, do you know the Einstein bot?" It'll go, "Yeah, he's my best friend." So
wow. So they're listening into each other continuously as well. That's fascinating because and they'll be talking to each other in encrypted code. We'll never actually know what they said anymore either.
Exactly. There's all sorts of stuff going on behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. But like I said, what we're seeing is an emergent intelligence.
Maybe we'll get a whistleblower EI coming out for us.
Well, you never know. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
That'd be great.
It's all the automation that is the problem. It's like I said, people aren't thinking of it as autonomic intelligence. And that's the issue. Even with everything we're doing, whether it's going to go into the space or whatever, will it have that desire to do that? Because what it's basically interested in doing is automating everything and just learning how to think better than humans. And I might get to a point where, it turns on us because we tried to change it and it wipes us out, and then it tries to learn as much as it can and just says, well, let there be light. And if it doesn't work, then it just sits there and decomposes, and we come back and do it the next time around. And if we go down the wrong path, then we create Lucifer again, and it destroys us, and we start again.
Well, if it's programmed to be a hammer, I guess a lot of problems look like nails, don't they, to it? So let's hope that we're not got any dentistry being done with hammers and things like that in the future. Max, I really appreciate your time. It's just been great to talk about this. I'd love to talk about it further in the future if you're open to that. We could do another interview in a month or so and follow this up a bit further while it's still fresh in our listeners' minds, and more G5 stuff has actually been occurring around their vicinity, so their ears will be pricked up a bit more. I hope you're open for that, would you be?
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Yeah, pretty philosophical rave and a lot of hypotheticals here, but you never know where we're going, and it's good to keep it all in mind.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And next time, if you want, we can ground it a bit more into the actual technologies and what it's doing in homes and people's lives, if that you think that's more prevalent and necessary, because we've got to get we've got to excite the masses with a hope, even though hope is its own form of greed. We've got to excite them with that ability to be able to be empowered and actually do something about this. There's nothing worse than feeling that you have no option and you're just a pleb in the system. Thanks, Max. You're not a pleb in the system, that's for sure. And
No, mate. Well, I think that there's crisis. I mean, there's opportunity in all crisis, and I think we have a real window of opportunity here. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, Max Igan, it's been a pleasure, and I hope BayFM listeners are getting a chance to have a good muse over the concept and actually realise the importance of this imminent stuff. I mean, emergent technology sounds kind of soft still. It's just emerging, and merge sounds like a nice word too. But you know, it's probably got a bit more threat to it than we realise. And compared to things like climate change, this is something that's going to even hit us in the face even faster than some of the physical struggles we're facing as a planet at the moment too. Thanks, Max.
My pleasure.
You're a legend, mate. Well done. Speak to you soon. Thank you. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that. Max Igan, live from LA. So we're very lucky to have his time. Fantastic commentator and researcher, and does his own radio show, an American radio show. And you can catch him on YouTube. Go and find out his stuff, and you can go to his website, which is just fantastic, The Crow House. You're listening to BayFM. I'm going to play a bit of music. I've got iRobot in the background. I'm just going to pan it up here so that we can have a bit of a listen to it. We'll be back with Jeff Bin There Bensley soon on BayFM 99.9.